Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Stewart. I'm the Director of Education here at the OI Foundation, and I am very excited to welcome you to this evening's discussion with McKenzie Coan. We are so happy she is here with us today. She is going to be talking about her new memoir that just came out called Breaking Free. In addition, she's going to be talking about her experience as a gold medalist Paralympic swimmer and her experience as a community member with OI. Before we get into that conversation, though, I want to just go over a few housekeeping announcements with everyone. So if you have attended some other OIF virtual events before, this will be very similar to that. We are going to be having everyone muted throughout today's conversation so that we can best hear McKenzie and Kara Ayers, who also will be joining us. So that we can best hear the information being shared. Also, you'll notice that today's session has live captioning, like other OIF events, so feel free to use that as well throughout today's session. You'll also notice that today's session is being recorded, and we're going to post this later online onto the OIF's website and our YouTube channel, so you can check it out there. In addition, we're going to be posting some relevant links into the chat at different points. So with that being said, I want to introduce Kara Ayers. So Dr. Kara Ayers is a former board member at the OIF, as well as the University of Cincinnati's Associate Director of their USED program. Also, in addition to that, she is a OIF Virtual National Conference speaker, and she is just a person who we are so thankful to be with us today as well. And she will be working with us to help interview McKenzie Coan. So Kara, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I'm so excited about our discussion tonight. Let me tell you, I'm resisting the urge to wave at everyone, so I'll get that out of the way. So good to see some familiar faces and some new friends as well. So let me tell you a little bit about McKenzie before we jump into our discussion. So like many of us, McKenzie was diagnosed with osteogenesis imperfecta at a young age. And she's going to share some about that as well as about her swimming career. So she is a 2, soon to be 3-time Paralympian and 4-time Paralympic medalist. So in 2012, she qualified for her first US Paralympic team, and she placed 6th in the 400-meter free at those London Games. 4 years later, at the 2016 Rio Olympics, McKenzie had a truly breakout meet. She reached the podium in 4 events, taking home 3 gold medals and 1 silver medal. And then in 2018, McKenzie broke her first world record by a staggering 37 seconds, which I can tell you in swimming does not happen very often, so that's incredible. And that was in the S7 800 freestyle. So that S7 is a classification number, and McKenzie and I are going to talk about that too and what that means to Paralympic swimming. So McKenzie is joining us tonight from the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I could not be more excited to kick this off. So thank you, McKenzie, for joining us.
Hi, Kara. Thank you so much for that introduction. And I also I need to wave to everyone. Right. I see so many familiar faces. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Right. I'm super excited to be here.
I am happy you're here as well. So why don't you get started by telling us about this book, what made you want to write this book, and tell us a little bit about the process.
Yes. So I actually think this process goes all the way back to when I was a young age group swimmer. You know, I had a lot of unique experiences being an athlete with osteogenesis imperfecta, and there were things that would happen and I would be with my parents and we talk about it like, this is so crazy, like swimming with a broken femur or swimming with a broken back. And, you know, you can't make that stuff up. And I was like, I would love to share this in a book one day, we would always joke. And it became a reality back in 2018. I finished up my NCAA career and I ended up signing with CG Sports Management. And I'll never forget, on my very first phone call with the company, CG asked me, what are your goals one day? And, you know, I list them all off. He asked me what I wanted to do as a professional athlete. And at the end, I very hesitantly said, you know, I would really love to write a book one day. And I remember sitting there, I was so nervous. What is his response going to be? And almost immediately he goes, we're going to make that happen. So I really think it started quite a while back and it became a reality in the last few years.
And we'll be able to read it soon. So,
Definitely.
yeah.
It's been a fun experience writing it. Definitely very reflective.
Definitely. And there are so many, I had the huge privilege to read it over winter break, actually. It still stands out because it was one of those things that even in the midst of holiday chaos, I was like, I gotta read more because there's so many good stories in there and things that I could relate to as both a swimmer and somebody who also has OI. So I can't wait to get to some of those. But first, I also want to hear your start in swimming and what led you to competitive swimming.
Yes, so like a lot of us on this call, I started physical therapy very early. I think I had my first appointment with my parents and the physical therapist when I was just 6 months old. So I was going probably a couple times a week up until about 4 years old. And the physical therapist told my parents it would be really awesome if we could start getting me in the water for aqua therapy. The water really provides obviously a weightless place where I'm really safe and able to move around a lot more than I would be able to on land. And so I went to my very first aqua therapy session. And I remember, I'd been in the pool before, but never without my parents in the water with me. And I remember I had this little zip up life jacket on, and I was in the class with probably two other kids who also had special needs. But I remember thinking to myself, I can figure out how to get through the water faster than them when we would do things. And I'll never forget the very first time I figured out if you pull the water apart, it was almost like I was already doing breaststroke, which is funny because that's my worst stroke. But I would remember I can pull the water apart and I can beat them. And so I started thinking to myself, I could be fast. And, it helped that I'm the middle child of two brothers and they had already started on the swim team. So I was in the therapy pool and they were over there in the lap pool. And I decided one day, I'd had enough of this. I don't want to be in the baby pool anymore. I want to race those other kids because I know I can beat them too. So I told my mom, I want to be over there. And she said, okay, let's do it. She unzipped my life jacket, threw it in the trash. And she told me the requirement to join the team is I had to swim one lap on my own without my life jacket and I could join the team. So she put me at the side. I jumped in, and I think I actually swam about 6 laps before I stopped. And I'll never forget, we had the head coach over there cheering me on, and everyone. I thought, this is so cool. And really becoming a part of the team from that point on was a really interesting experience for me because it was the first time when I was in a large group with other kids who none of them looked like me. None of them had physical differences like myself, but it didn't matter. I was accepted as a part of the team. I worked right alongside them. I learned how to adapt when I needed to. So, as much as I learned in the water about, swimming and technique and everything, I began to learn a lot about myself and how to manage my life with OI.
Totally. And I think swimming does offer that really unique. There are lots of sports that people with OI can
Right.
play and participate in, but that chance
Absolutely.
to be a part of a team and an integrated team, an inclusive team, is something that swimming really can provide. And I wish I would have realized that at a younger age. I
Mhm.
didn't realize that until college, but looking back, like what an incredible experience that would have been to have that growing up. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So I'm sure now your typical day in training has changed. So I'm wondering, like, what is your typical day like? And also, how did you fit writing into that? Because I know your typical day is definitely very challenging. So how did writing come into that?
Yes, there are definitely some long days in the midst of training for games, that's for sure. Actually, my co author, Holly, who is on this call right now, she's amazing. We started writing Breaking Free back in late September, early October. And so I had just gotten out to the training center. I'm at the Olympic and Paralympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. And before that, I've been at home for about 6 months in Georgia, and I decided they opened up slots for the national team to come out here and basically live in a bubble, if you will. So it's a very small group of people who are living at the training center currently, and we have access to really amazing facilities. It's been such a gift to be able to do that. But I would literally wake up at 6 a.m. I go to practice from 7 to 9 a.m. And then Holly and I would jump on a call right after, and we talk for an hour or two. We had specific stories or topics that we wanted to touch on. And those were probably some of the funnest conversations I've ever had. And none of it ever really felt like work, but we'd hop on that call, we'd talk about it, we'd plan the next day or the day after that call. And then I would eat some lunch, and then I'd take a small nap. I'd go back to training for a second time during the day. And then after that, it was all about recovery and getting to bed to wake up and do it all again the next day. So it's definitely very busy. It keeps me kind of very task oriented throughout the day, because I know I'm always going to have 2 training sessions each day, and I have to be able to get in recovery somewhere and do any of the work stuff I needed to do. But let me tell you, after my college experience, I swam for 4 years as part of an NCAA Division I program while going to school full time, while also being a member of the national team. You will never learn better time management skills than in that time period. So I feel like all of that kind of prepared me to take on this challenge of swimming full time as a professional, getting ready for the games while riding breaking free.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I bet it does feel a little freer without the class load right now.
Definitely. You know what? It almost feels, dare I say, a little easy at times. I'm like, shouldn't I be a little bit more run down than this? I'm used to that.
Yeah, well, you mentioned recovery, and I wondered what your thoughts are what's it like building in recovery? Do you think it's obviously, you've never not been an athlete with OI, but what is it like? What kinds of things do you try to do for your body to recover?
I think as an athlete with OI, I think it's even more important for me to get in proper recovery. One of my favorite things right after I get out of the water and back to the athlete center here where our dorms are, I always grab bags of ice and get them on my shoulders and my back right away as soon as possible. Because I know it's so important for me, since I'm so upper body dominant, to keep those parts of my body going. So I always like to make sure I'm already doing something at least to try to get that inflammation out before my next training session. So ice is a must. I also use a roller, like a foam roller. And I have to be really careful with that, because obviously some foam rollers are a little bit rougher and they have different textures on them. So I can't push down too hard in certain places. And as many of us on this call know with OI, it's all about adapting and figuring out how to make it work for us. And I think that's been really crucial in my recovery process. And obviously, I'm 25 now. I don't quite recover as quickly as I used to. So it's been, a challenge figuring out exactly how much I need to keep going on a daily basis with the workload that my body is taking on.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Mm.
So if we get into kind of the nitty gritty of Paralympic swimming for a little bit here, can you explain the process of classification and what your experience has been like with that?
Yes, absolutely. So classification is a very complex system. I have a lot of respect for classifiers. I think that they have a very difficult and demanding job. Obviously, they see a broad range of disabilities and all kinds of things out there. So I do not envy their job, and I have a lot of respect for them. There are 10 physical impairment classifications. S1s being the most impaired. You might see an athlete who literally has one limb who's swimming, whereas S10s on the other end of the spectrum are the least impaired of the physical impairments. And for me personally, I fall into the S7 category, so kind of somewhere in the middle there. But let me tell you, I have been probably every classification you could possibly imagine. When I was younger, before I had kind of developed into my OI a little bit more, I obviously had more range of motion. I was more flexible. So I actually started out as a NE, which is non-eligible 10 NE. And basically what that means, the only stroke that I was eligible to swim was breaststroke at the time. So you have an S class, an SB class, and then you have an IM class. So the only thing I could swim was breaststroke. That was about a year-long process for me to get reviewed again. So I only swam breaststroke at Paralympic meets for a year, and they reviewed me again, and they made me an S9 because I had, developed into my OI a little bit more. I had less range of motion. And from there, I spent 4 years as an S9. And that was a challenging experience because I was the only one in my S9 classification who got around in a wheelchair. And I would always get questions like, oh, you're an S9. I had to explain to them, well, OI is a very complex disorder. And, I think eventually I'll go down, but this is how it is right now. And then in 2012, just before the London trials, I was classified down as an S8. And that kind of started fitting a little bit more where I had always felt I belonged on a pool deck and in the classification system. So I was an S8. And from there, at my very first meet as an 8, I made the emerging team and then the national team. And then the next meet was trials and ended up making my first games team. So from there, I spent probably about 3-4 years as an S8. Then right before Rio, I went down to an S7. So you can kind of see in my classification experience how I've progressed and how it's shown in me dropping classifications, which I think is really interesting. But it is a scary experience being somebody who has OI going into classification, because the system, you have two different parts of the classification itself. You have a bench test and you have a water test. On the bench test, the classifiers, and again, they have a difficult job, but they pull on you, they twist you, they calculate your range of motion, they do all the things that you're basically not supposed to do to a person who has OI. And I remember every time before I went in there, whether it was with my mom or a coach or a member of the national team staff, I had a tendency to hold my breath a little bit. And I'd be like, okay, like we're going in there. And I wasn't scared of the outcome in itself, but just being pulled on by everyone, because you can't tell them to stop because it's a part of the process. So it has been tricky at times, but I've been very fortunate in my last couple of classifications to be able to explain to the classifiers, it's all about communication, to explain to them what OI is. And if you want me to do something, just tell me before you grab on me, or don't pull on me. If you want me to do something, let me do it. Let me do it myself. So I always tell young swimmers in the para world who are coming up, communicate with your classifiers. If you can keep that open line of communication throughout, you will be able to have a safe experience. But I think no matter what, it's always a little bit nerve-wracking going in there.
Yeah, I definitely remember that. So when I swam, I was an SB4 was my lower number. And then I was a 6 in the freestyle backstroke side and a 5 in the IM side. So I was kind of all over the board. So depending on what stroke I was swimming would depend on which classification. And what my hope is that that more swimmers with OI are taking part in this system, so that also it can kind of naturally, the system can figure out that, like you said, it is a complex, we have all different kind of ranges of the way that OI impacts us. And another piece of advice that I've given people, and I think we even talked about this when you were younger, was when you go into the classification room, they ask you questions like, can you walk without your wheelchair? And I think it's a tendency for us. So for example, my kids kid me because it's still, if people ask me that, I'm like, well, yeah, sort of. And my kids now are like, no, you can't, Mom. No, you can't. So because I cannot walk functionally at all. Like I can hold on to stuff and take a few steps, but it's not walking. But in the classification room, if they asked me that question and I said, yeah, I walk, then it immediately kind of can change. So it's a weird environment. It's not that you want to lie and say that you can't do things that you can do, but it's not the same environment, maybe like your doctor's appointment where you want to tell them that, like, here's everything that, I can do. It's, you kind of got to hit this middle, or else what'll happen is you can end up in a number group that is just not fair.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And it's interesting, Carol, when we first met back in, I believe it was 2010 at GTAC.
Yeah.
Actually, I have to tell this story real quick because I think it's so funny how my mom, my dad, and we all met you. Okay, so my mom and I were sitting at a computer and she was trying to figure out, I think I was like 2 years away from getting my learner's permit or my license or whatever. And we were trying to figure out how we would get my wheelchair into the car safely. So she literally like Googled it on her laptop, and pulled up this video, and Kara was putting her chair into the car, and we were watching, and my mom goes, she goes like this at the screen, and she goes, she looks exactly like you. And then we Googled you some more, and she was like, she's a Paralympic swimmer. She's a Paralympian. And I was like, oh my God. And then it just so happened we were going to a meet in Ohio that you lived in Ohio, and it couldn't have been more perfect. And I remember you came, and this is just before your daughter Hannah was born, and you sat in the stands the entire session, watched my swims, and we got to hang out after and talking about everything, and even the classification system. And I probably mentioned like, yeah, I'm a 9 now. It doesn't quite fit, but I'm hoping in the next few years that will change maybe. But it's so funny that you brought that up, because I remember distinctively having that conversation with you the very first time that we met.
Yeah, and I'm just so glad you stuck with it. I mean, I think that really speaks to your love for swimming, because it can be a unique experience. I mean, I think Paralympic swim meets are just incredible to watch, all the different disabilities, and just it's incredible. But when you're competing, you've worked hard, and everybody else around you is like, literally dancing without any assistance, because I know some meets used to have dances after them. They kind of got rid of that, but so it can be weird. So it is really important that that number, somewhat accurately try to capture where you are. And it is tough. It's hard to factor in OI, I think.
It is really difficult. And I tell you, with everything that I went through with classification, I always tell people with OI, it might be a fight sometimes, but I promise you, it's always worth it. Stick it out. There were some low points, some more difficult classification appointments and experiences that I had. And sometimes it did feel like I was fighting an uphill battle that I wasn't going to win. But I tell you, I have never been so grateful and thankful that I kept going. And that was really from, the support of my parents, my family, my doctors. I cannot tell you how much documentation I would bring from them, and x-rays and everything under the sun with me. And if it wasn't for that support, I don't know what would have happened. But I always tell people, though, I stick it out. If you want it, you'll find a way, and the system will work for you eventually down the road, but you have to see it through.
That's a great point too, of bringing the documentation, because I think much of the classification system is built for athletes who have amputations, athletes, who have a form of, who are little people. So, but OI, it seems like we have so much going on under our skin that you can't see. You can't see hip issues and spine issues. I mean, you can't see some of it, but you know what I mean. And so bringing those x-rays, I'm sure, was helpful too, to helping them know all that's going on.
Absolutely.
So if we move kind of beyond classification for a minute, how do you think OI has impacted your swimming career?
I actually think it's made me a stronger athlete. I will always believe that OI has shaped my life in so many ways that I can't even explain to you. But, I'm sure many of us could attest to this on this call. Every single break that I've ever gone through has only made me a stronger person and a stronger athlete. There are some days, and even out here, I was thinking about it the other day, we were going through one of the toughest 400 free pace sets I think I've ever done in my entire life. And there was a moment we were halfway through it, like we were just halfway up the hill, like we still had to go down it. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, I've been through worse than this. I have had to push through difficult things. There's no reason why I can't put my head down and finish this set right now. So I think being able to look back on the experiences that I've had with OI, all the bad, but also the good experiences, have made me stronger, have made me more confident. Sometimes when I'm standing behind the block at big meets, I think back to days in the hospital where, maybe I just went through a rotting surgery, or I was getting a tough round of Permendernate or something like that. And it just gives me strength going out there and knowing that I've faced harder than this. I've lived through harder things than this. And I know I can go out there and do this. And actually, one of the interesting things, and I talk about this in Breaking Free, is my focus. I really think that going through procedures with OI and going through fractures have given me the ability to focus in really high pressured, stressful situations. I'm able to key in on the task at hand. I'm able to be task oriented. I'm able to be task focused. I can put aside emotions and just get the job done. And I actually credit that and tribute that to having OI and going through some really difficult experiences with that.
It's super interesting, kind of that hyper focus, no matter what, no matter what the body's doing, no matter what the everything, the environment. Yeah.
It is. And I
Awesome.
think it's definitely prepared me for that. And throughout, I think those are tools I'll use throughout my entire life, my
Yeah.
job, whatever it may be. I think that's something that OI has really given me. And I'm sure a lot of people on this call can attest to that as well.
Yeah, I think so too. One of my favorite kind of stories from the book was your tech suit story. So I didn't know if you wanted to share that a little bit with the audience. Yeah.
Yes. So one of the hardest things, and it's just such a crazy thing because nobody ever thinks about this. Having OY and, as a swimmer, we wear these super, super tight tech suits when we go out to race. We wear them maybe 4 sizes too small sometimes. So getting on these tech suits is a very tricky challenge for someone who is not supposed to be pulling, not supposed to be yanking or twisting and grabbing things with her body. And I share these stories in the book, but I have to actually lay down in the floor to get these tech suits on because I kid you not, there have been experiences before I'll go out before a big race and I try not to wear my tech suit during warm up if I can help it because I want that moment when I dive in for the race to be the first time I feel that weightlessness that a tech suit gives me. But I have to lay down in the floor and slowly, it's probably like a 30-minute process, pulling this suit up. And before I used to do that, I would stand up. And there have been times where I've like popped my shoulder out of place or I hurt my back really badly one time. There's one time where I really messed up my shoulder putting it on, and I only to get it on and to realize that I had a hole in the side of it. So it was all for nothing in the end. But it's one of those really crazy things that nobody thinks about. Putting on a tech suit is so dangerous when you have OI, let me tell you. And I get more nervous to put on that suit than I do for the actual race. It is like nerve-wracking. I feel like sometimes I'm like, okay, the suit's on, like the job's already done. Just got to go out and finish it.
Yeah, for sure. It's got so many red flags. The locker room, no matter what, is somewhat slippery, I feel like.
It
So,
is.
yes,
It is.
there's just
And
so many things.
Kara, I'm a bit of a germaphobe, so you can only
Yeah.
imagine what I've been like in these COVID-19 times. But I've got my little Lysol bottle. I'm like spraying down the floor before I get down on it. It's very entertaining.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we'll be thinking about that as we wait for you to get on the blocks in
Yes.
Tokyo. So thinking about that, I would love to hear your thoughts about, well, of course, we're all wondering like, how will Tokyo be different, do you think? But just kind of a behind the scenes look of what's the village like and, what are you excited about this year?
Yeah. What's interesting is obviously we've lived through something so difficult and so devastating the last year. I mean, COVID-19 has really impacted all of our lives and will continue to for a while probably. But looking at these games as no surprise, London and Rio were 2 completely different games. I think about them and just 2 completely different experiences. And I've done a lot of work with sports psychology. We always talk about, okay, well, Tokyo is obviously going to be different from Rio and London. You won't know or expect everything that's coming, but obviously this does take on a very different tone. We are going through a lot of different policies just to be able to get on that plane and leave for games. We're going to have daily COVID testing. We're going to have certain groups in the village that we're allowed to be around and others that we won't have much interaction with. I already saw from the village cafeteria that they have plastic barriers in between people in the cafeteria. So it'll be like we're eating in a box. That'll be a unique experience. But, you know, just remembering that every games is different, and it's something that we'll deal with each thing as it comes along. As a professional athlete, you know, we're trained in sports psychology to be able to deal with the unexpected. And as you know, having gone to games, it's the unexpecteds come at you quite quickly sometimes. And as a group, as Team USA, we have to band together and learn how to face those challenges head on and support one another. And that's exactly what we're going to do in Tokyo. So I expect that we're going to have a lot of challenges come our way, but our training over the past year, and especially when lockdown started last year, these are things that we worked on because we couldn't train in a pool. So it's like we got extra time to work on our mental state and what to expect when the time comes. So I'm expecting the unexpected, and I'm confident that we'll be able to face that. But at the same time, seeing all the Olympians, you know, post pictures of the village and realizing that we're still going to a Paralympic village, we're still going to have that Paralympic experience. It's just going to look a little bit different. You know, obviously, I wish that we could have spectators. I wish I could have my family there, and that'll be a little bit bittersweet, but recognizing that support is still there back at home, I can kind of feel it. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, we will definitely be cheering you on. And I know you'll make the best of it in the changes, but I think it will still be so special in so many ways. And I really liked, hopefully those that have tuned in follow you on social media. I liked, I can't remember if it was Twitter or Instagram, that you shared like what was in your bag.
Yes.
Yeah. And that made me wonder, like, what kind of is in your bag, or kind of too big for your bag, related to OI? Like, I'm curious, I'm sure you're going to bring your wheelchair, right?
Yes.
And what else kind of are you packing kind of with your OI related needs in mind?
Yeah, I think that there's really specific things. Like I have certain pillows that I like to sleep on, you know, obviously with my scoliosis and everything, and then my hip, I like to kind of prop it up when I sleep at night. So I'll definitely be bringing that. And then I'm bringing my emergency brake kit, as I like to call it, because I am someone who is very prone to running into things and running into walls on finishes and lame ropes and whatever else you could physically possibly run into. So I will be bringing that to tape up little finger or toe or foot fractures if I need to. But I always have that in my swim bag. It's just a little bag, and it has like tape, it has Advil, it has anything I need to kind of splint a break with. And that's really important for me to have. So that'll definitely be with me. And then my wheelchair, obviously, my wheelchair tools, just anything that could possibly, you know, I say we're going to expect the unexpected, and I'm going to pack for the unexpected as well.
And I think it is kind of nice, at least for our games, and I think it's still the same for this. You don't have the same worry of your wheelchair being damaged when you fly, because like the whole flight is kind of ready and prepared for that. We did have the issue of when they unloaded our chairs, for some apparent reason, they took off all the wheels and they piled them. I have this awesome picture of like probably a 12-foot high pile of wheelchair wheels. And some of us had individually tagged our wheels, but some had not. So people were like, I mean, Paralympians were seated on the ground, like fishing through, like, I think this is my wheel. So besides that hiccup, but you don't have the same concern that, you know, your wheelchair is going to make it to Tokyo. So that's good.
That's actually so funny now. Maybe I'm just gonna maybe I'll take a Sharpie and just like put my initials on mine, like in the corner or something.
Yeah, I was definitely thankful I had over tagged.
So funny. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it is a super fun well, you need patience to travel with a lot of other athletes with disabilities.
Yes.
It takes a long time. Yeah.
Patience and understanding. And I'm a person, I love traveling alone. Like I think it's so much fun. I don't know why. But when you get into those situations, it takes a lot of patience and understanding one another, and plus you're about to be together on this team trip for a month, so might as well not start it off on the wrong foot.
Yeah, you don't want to get in a dispute on the way over.
Definitely.
Well, I wanted to let people know if they want to start dropping questions in the chat. I saw a couple come in, but we would love to have your questions in a few minutes. And So I wondered, I have just a couple more questions for you, McKenzie. I wondered how your mindset has changed. I know you talked a bit about how each games is different, but specifically now that you've achieved these huge milestones, I mean, world record, gold medals. So how do you kind of like set that next higher bar for yourself? And what does that look like for you?
Yeah, when I take a moment to reflect, and especially when I was writing Breaking Free, and Holly and I were going through all of these stories and digging up all of these feelings, like the last couple of years since 2016, I felt like, yeah, I had so much going on. In 2018, I graduated from college and I was, training full time for whatever meet was coming up next. And then I was thinking about law school and studying for the LSAT. So I don't think I ever really took the time to sit down and think about what I had done in Rio. I mean, even when I got back from Rio, I was back to being a full-time college student immediately. I went into classes a month late. I never had time to actually think about what I achieved and kind of live in those moments. So in the process of writing Breaking Free, I was able to really kind of reflect, and it brought up a lot of feelings that I don't think I had ever really looked into or felt before, and that was really really cool. And just being able to recognize what I went out and did in 2016 was a pretty incredible thing, and just living in that while we were writing the book was amazing. But it also made me think about, why am I still swimming? Why am I still doing this? And, I still feel like, even though I did all that in 2016, I want more. And I know that there's more in me. I know that I show up to the pool every single session, even if I don't have the best day, I'm going to give it my all. And I always think that there's room to be better. And that's the amazing thing about swimming. You can always be better than you were the last time you dove in. It just takes a lot of work and sacrifice and determination, and especially showing up on the days that you don't feel like it, or when things aren't going well, not crumbling and getting through it. And that's what it takes. So to be able to reflect on that was really amazing, but also to realize that, okay, I could be better than those world records I set. I could, I could win more medals or do more things than I did in 2016. But I think beyond all of that, there is a bigger recognition about what I want to do in Tokyo and what I'm trying to achieve. And bigger than any medal, bigger than any world record, is being able to go out there and show the next generation what is possible, show and inspire kids who are up and coming to go out and to do what we're doing, but to do it even better and even bigger, and that dreams have no limitations. So I think I'm at a point in my career now where, yes, I've felt success, I've tasted success, and that's amazing, and I would love to have more, but it's about something so much bigger now, and it's about bringing up the next generation to go out and do it even bigger.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see that either. And we can't wait to see you in Tokyo. How can we watch you this year?
Yes, so it will be on NBC, and just like the Olympics, obviously, we're going to be swimming at some pretty late times here in the States, no matter where you are in the country. So it'll be live on NBC at those times, but it'll also be on the next day. You can catch on NBC, NBCSN. I think they're going to do about 15,000 hours of airtime on NBC. So you will be able to catch it. Swimming actually goes on throughout all 10 days of the games. My program doesn't start until day 5, so I'll go day 5 throughout the rest of the games, and I'll have about 5 individual events and hopefully 2 relays. So I'm really excited, and obviously, having this on NBC and having as many hours of coverage as we're going to have is something absolutely monumental to the Paralympic movement. I remember back at my first games when we were in London in 2012, I think you could barely find, I don't even think you could find a live stream on the internet from the US. I think we had about, if we were lucky, a 2 hour, it might have been a 1 hour special. It might have been a 2 hour special on NBCSN after the games were over. And I think all in all, it's like 5 minutes of swimming crammed into this entire special about every Paralympic sport. And then, going to Rio, we had airtime on NBC, NBCSN, and that was really huge. But now to have the amount of hours that we do is something so amazing, and the coverage and the exposure for the Paralympic movement here in the US, it's something really incredible, and it's taken a long time to get to, but I feel like we're finally in a really good place and matching other countries. You have Great Britain, who's done it for a long time, who's done it the right way, but
Yeah.
to finally be on that level feels really good.
It has been great to see the excitement build. And it's one of the first years that I remember too, so many commercials and endorsements are joint Paralympic and Olympic athletes.
Right.
And to see those together is really, I think, a cool representation. And I think just in talking to people about the games too, people are starting to understand the differences between,
Yes.
but also maybe even more importantly, how much they're similar. And I mean, we've always joked in our house, you know, that if more people had a chance to watch the Paralympics, they'd realize that in a lot of ways, and we're biased around here, but we think they're more interesting. You know, I mean, there's so many more like incredible like finishes and stories, and there's so much more diversity in athletes and disability types. I mean, it's if the general public had a chance to see these games, they would never not want to see them each, you know, time they come around. So I hope this is the year that you know, we all have a chance to do that.
And you know, it's really incredible because years and years ago, I never would have thought that you see, you know, I'm sure a lot of you have seen the Toyota commercial with Jessica Long coming on. It has played every single time I've watched the Olympics, at least once, if not 2 or 3 times while we've been watching the games on TV. And that type of representation is incredible. And then I watched a Comcast commercial the other day. This is really exciting to me, Kara. At the end of the commercial, you know, it usually comes up proud sponsor and it has the Olympic rings, and then Kara will be after it or something. No, proud sponsor Paralympics, and that came up before the Olympics. And
Nice. Yeah.
it really struck me at how far we've come, and it made me excited for what's to come. Who knows what it'll be like in 2024 at this time.
Yeah, it's a huge change. I mean, I know I used to be excited because I knew that certain big companies like the Hartford and some of the big Olympic name sponsors also sponsor the Paralympics, but they didn't even put that on their, you know, their endorsements pages or, you know, their commercials. And so it's a huge shift, and I'm excited. I also want people, as we cheer you on from over here, just for you to know that, because I remember it's a grueling, you know, many days. And, you know, you mentioned like this stretch too. One of the things I think it's hard about swimming and a lot of people don't realize is that you're going to be busy and focused and kind of on your A game the whole games. Whereas a lot of the other sports are done like day 4, and they can like, of course, this year they won't be like hopefully partying in Tokyo, but you know, they're like relaxing and like taking in the games, having this like good time. Whereas when you're a swimmer, especially with your heavy schedule load, you will be, you know, on the whole time. So I know there'll be tired moments. So know that your OI community is behind you for sure.
Definitely. Thank you. It is absolutely the best time of your life and also the most grueling. Let me tell you, I tried to explain this to someone. I was like, there is no tired quite like the tired that you feel when you get on the plane to leave a Paralympic Games. It is a different kind of tired, and it hits you so differently. So that is definitely true. It's exciting, but very grueling. But knowing that I have this support from the community it keeps me going for sure.
That's awesome. Well, I want to jump to the chat box, but before I do that, I want to know first, how can we get a hold of your book?
Yes, so you can go on Amazon. There is a pre-order link there. You can type in McKenzie Coan book or McKenzie Coan Breaking Free, and it'll come right up. It's also listed in the swimming related book section. There's a list of new releases. You can find it there. It's also available for pre-order on Target.com, and pre-order will be up until August 11th when the book is officially released. You can also go on my website, McKenzieCoan.com, and you can order the book there. We also just put up a link today to get an autographed copy from that. So I'll personally fill it out and have it sent out to you from there as well. So a couple different ways that you can find Breaking Free.
Awesome. Thank you. And I've already had the pleasure to read it, but I'm definitely going to pre-order copies, not only because I want to spread the joy, but also I've been learning that pre-ordering is, I guess, an important indicator for the book market about like kind of what's going to be hot and trending. So one of the ways that we can help even other people see this book and get recommended in lists is by pre-ordering. So,
yes.
So that's something I'm trying to remember to do, even though, because sometimes I think like, well, I'll order it when it's out. But pre-ordering, I guess, kind of gives it that extra boost. So that would be fantastic.
Yeah, pre-ordering is amazing. And also, this was really important to me. Every pre-order that's sold, I'm actually going to give back a percentage to the OI Foundation. And it was really important to me coming from this community and having so many amazing people and the, foundation making such an impact on my life to be able to give a little something back to something that's been such a presence in my life and my swimming career and everything. So that's really important to me as well in these pre-orders.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Definitely.
All right, let's jump into, we have some great questions. So I'm going to kind of try to start at around the top. So how much how much have physical therapists been involved in your training?
Quite a bit. My physical therapist, Colleen O'Berry, since the time I think I was 6 months old when I went to my first physical therapist, but we met Colleen maybe when I was 1 or 2. So she was my second physical therapist, but she's been with me ever since then. And Colleen has been such a presence in my life. I was going a couple of times a week when I was younger. And then obviously, as I started to get older, we would go in when things happened or when I was trying to come off a fracture and heal and everything. But Colleen's always been there day and night. We call her up. She stops everything that she's doing and just to help me, even as I've gotten older and entered adulthood. And Colleen has been so much more than a physical therapist. She is literally a part of my family. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt, I would not be as healthy as I am today. I would not still be swimming today if it wasn't for her guidance and her support. So she is a huge part of my life.
That is awesome. I'm glad that you have her.
Definitely.
So this is an interesting one. This is from Anne Marie. So she's wondering, how much, if at all, does stature come into, or height come into play with classification? So if you have 2 people with about the same muscle strength, how much does height come in?
Yes, this is a great question because there was a very big height rule change back in 2016. It was right before the Rio Games, and it actually came out just as I was going in for a classification review. It just so happens that they rewrote the rules into the book. And if you are below a certain height, they have a -1 rule in World Para Swimming now. So I fall below that height requirement. So even if I bench test an S7 and in the water test I'm an S7, since I'm below a certain height, I would go -1 from that classification. So let's say, like an example, like I bench tested an 8, I was in the water, they, gave me an S8 in my water test. Well, I'm below a height, so I dropped down to an S7. So that all came into play back in 2016. But before then, they didn't, unless you were a dwarf or a little person, they didn't really take height into consideration that much. So those were written in back in 2016. So very, very, very big rule change, and has definitely affected the classification system.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense because
It definitely does.
swimming, your body height makes a difference. So
Definitely.
we have a great question from Jack. So he says he's 12, he swims a lot. He hasn't tried to join a swim team yet, but he's wondering kind of what is the path, do you think, for getting into the Paralympics? He would love to swim with other kids like him. So maybe before the Paralympics, kind of like what's a way that people could get into adapted swimming?
Yeah, no, that's such a great question. So I actually started as part of an age group team before I joined adaptive swimming. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know when I was on an age group team before I was told about it. I didn't know about the Paralympics. I didn't know those opportunities existed actually. So I joined an age group team first, but I would absolutely recommend go to Google, wherever you live, search your area, search your state, and find an adaptive swim program and start from there. You can also, if you're already in age group swimming, talk to your coaches. You can reach out to your state's LSC to find those opportunities and get connected with different adaptive swim programs. But I was with an age group team, and then I was with Blaze Sports America, which is the legacy organization of the 1996 Paralympic Games. And They were fantastic. I really learned about Paralympics through them. I was able to move through the ranks from, regional swim meets to junior nationals and then nationals from there. So it's a great stepping stone to be able to learn what you need to know as you're going through the ranks of Paralympics by joining an adaptive program. They will give you your start, and Blaze Sports did so much for me, and I learned so much through them, and I'm so grateful that I went to them first before I started going to Paralympic swim meets.
Definitely, that makes sense. A few years ago, I know they you used to have a grant program that were Paralympic sport clubs in a number of cities, and
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that's continuing in all those cities. Like I know in Cincinnati, ours is no longer officially a Paralympic sports club, but we still have like the swimming program as part of it. So that might be another place you could look in your city. Or, I mean, and a lot of people, adapted athletes of all kinds of different sports, do sometimes have to drive a bit to get to
Yes.
the city. And so maybe you don't practice every day with your team if your team is a ways away, but maybe you're able to go to meets. And so that's a way
Yes.
that you could get in. Yeah.
That's a great point, actually, because I grew up in rural Northeast Georgia, a great town, but it was about 2 hours from Atlanta. And I remember my parents and I would drive 2 hours to get to Marietta to swim with Blaze, but we only did that once a month. So I would spend the other days swimming with my age group program, and it really worked out because
Yeah.
I still got to be with my age group program, but I still got to be with Blaze Sports. So there's a little bit of flexibility there, which is amazing. And you can also go on the US Paralympics website and go to swimming, and they have resources there to connect you with coaches. So you can reach out to them through email. It'll probably put you in contact with members of the national team staff, and they'll help you get in contact with someone to get you into a program as well.
Yeah, that's great. We have another young swimmer. I'm so happy to see these. So this one is Joe. He's 8 years old. He does synchronized swimming
Awesome.
and artistic swimming. So Joe wants to know, how do you swim with a broken bone?
Great question. So, throughout my career, I've certainly faced this many, many times. And I think it's all about mindset. When I would break a bone, in particularly, I'm sure a lot of you can attest to this on this call. A femur for me was always the hardest fracture to kind of get over. So, a day or two after breaking my femur, I would take small steps towards getting back into practice and everything. So, I would go to the pool the first time and kind of walk around a little bit in the water, try to move it around, and slowly I'd start adding swimming back in. But I tried to never be out of the water for more than a few days or a week after a fracture, because you guys know, living with OI, you don't want it to rule your entire life. You want to find a way to get back to your normal life as soon as possible, because if we all stopped every time we had a fracture, you would never be living life. So I always tried to take it step by step, getting back into it, and remembering that as much as, I want to just get back to swimming and everything, that's also a part of my recovery. So when I would go in with a broken femur, I learned that the sooner I got back in the water, the better, and the faster I would get better. So it was a part of my recovery, and also a way to get back to my normal, and in a sense.
That makes sense. And I want to correct myself. I think I said, so Joe had typed in the question, but I actually recognized the author because she had a little Instagram fame there in her synchronized swimming video. McKenzie
Oh
and
my
I both, hey, we both messaged each other and we were like, we got to find this little girl. So there
She
she
is.
is.
Oh my gosh,
You
it's
see her?
amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, when I saw that video, I was like, "Oh my God." I remember I
Yes.
shared it on my Instagram story. I was super excited, and so many
Yes.
people sent it to me. Just amazing. Like, keep it up. That was
Yes.
awesome.
So
I
cool.
love it.
Way to go. Oh my gosh. Now I'm fanning here. All right. So I had, another future swimmer. And I think maybe this could apply to what you just said about kind of easing it in. But this question is about the daughter is 5 years old. What would
Mhm.
you suggest to help a child get into swimming, kind of get over the fear part? So this parent wants to take her swimming, but kind of how can you get over that fear part, especially for little ones?
I think honestly the best place to start, and I got to be honest with you, having aqua therapy lessons for me, it was not only a great way to get in the water and kind of strengthen my bones, but it gave me a chance to, my parents have always been super supportive and I've always loved having them right there. But I feel like that was my first real taste of independence, was getting in with that group without my parents right there and being able to do it with an instructor. So I would say finding the right instructor, getting them in swim lessons or getting them in an aqua therapy group is a great way to kind of start building that self-sufficiency that's actually going to be something very important in the rest of your life, while also giving you the confidence to overcome that fear of the water. I think was huge for me. And that day that we pulled that life jacket off, I don't know if I would have been able to do that without having first gone through aqua therapy and feeling what it was like to swim on my own and to have that kind of independence in the water. So I think that's really where you start to build it. Get them in lessons, get them in something like that, get them with somebody else doing it. I think it's extremely important.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we're hearing from other people that have also, swimming has been part of their recovery, and other fans of synchro. A quick question about, do you do warm water and cold water training?
So you know what? It's really funny because every day when we hop in, the pool is absolutely freezing, and taking a cold plunge every single day at 7 a.m., no matter how long you've been swimming, is not the most pleasant thing. So but once you start moving and you get into those really difficult sets and start getting really hot, I've never been more grateful that the water is freezing. But at 7 a.m. when you're hopping in, I really wish I was getting in a hot tub and not a freezing cold pool for sure. So competition temperature is usually not so pleasant until you're racing and you really need it cold.
You can enjoy warm water in your retirement. So
You
you
know
got
what?
plenty of
That's what I
time
keep
for that.
saying. I'm gonna be in one of those classes with like the dancing and like the
Oh
aqua
yeah.
aerobics. Like that's my future. So I'm looking
Aqua
forward to
side.
it. Oh,
Yeah,
for
some
sure.
people just do not do the cold water. Yeah, my daughter, I had thought maybe she would love swimming, and she
Yeah.
did, and little kids lessons, learned her strokes, and then she tried out for her first team, hit that cold water, and was like, no thank you. So that was
I still resonate with that. It is the
Yeah,
hardest part of my day.
for sure. What stroke is your favorite?
Oh, freestyle. Hands
For sure,
down.
yeah.
Definitely freestyle.
All right. And what about like relays or your individual races? Which do you think
Ooh.
you enjoy the most?
I gotta tell you, I love swimming my individual races. Like the 400 free is my favorite event, and it always will be. But I think there's a lot of pride in going out there, and especially if you're swimming a relay for Team USA, you had to swim your way onto that relay. It wasn't
Mhm.
just given to you. You had to prove that you were one of the best of Team USA. So I think actually one of my favorite races from Rio was going out there for the 4x100 free relay and winning a silver for Team USA, because I feel like doing it as a group and doing it as a part of Team USA, it meant a lot, and maybe even so much more than my individual races. Being selected to go out there with 3 other women and do that, it's just an indescribable feeling.
That's awesome. Well, we'll be watching for you for those hopefully too as well,
Yeah.
because you won't know, right?
Yeah, won't know
Yeah.
until sometimes the day of or a couple hours before. So
Okay.
crazy.
Well, I've got just 2 more questions for you. So first, what kind of strength training do you do for upper body, lower body?
That was probably the trickiest part of my athletic career, was figuring out the strength training part of it. And like a lot of swimmers, I didn't start seriously strength training until I got into college. There's a certain time when you're supposed to start putting that kind of muscle on, and there's a right time to do it for everyone. And mine happened to be then. So getting into the weight room, I'm not going to lie, was a little bit intimidating, but we learned, for me personally, especially with my OI, the best way to go about that was to use smaller weights, but more repetitions. So whereas a lot of my teammates here will go for bigger weight, I'm using smaller, but I'm doing more of that than they are. And then obviously with ab circuits and things, it's all about what I can tolerate with my back and my scoliosis. And I'm really lucky to be out here at the training center and have some fantastic lift coaches who are able to work one-on-one with me to put together programs that are not only going to be beneficial to me, but also keep me safe. And in Baltimore, I was really lucky to have that as well. So I think it's all about being adaptive, but also reminding myself to be smart about it. You know, the last thing I want to do is get hurt. So don't overdo it and really use my brain when we go to do something, for sure.
Definitely. And then the last question we have, I think this is a great one to finish up. So what is something you're looking forward to in Japan besides competing?
Oh my gosh, I went to Japan back in 2018. And funny thing is, I had just gotten done filming a documentary for one of the Japanese production companies, Wow Wow. And I got to meet, you know, obviously it'll be very different this time, but even on my Instagram DMs, like volunteers of the games are like, we're so excited to see you. We can't wait. And just the people there are so friendly. And even in the midst of such a different games and what we're going into, they're so friendly and they're so excited to welcome us there. So the little interaction that I will have with people, I'm really looking forward to that, and just being able to say hi to people. And I think it's so cool that they've seen me there already. So I'm really, really looking forward to meeting people, even from a distance.
Right. Waving from afar.
Yeah, literally. Hey, what's up?
There you are.
Yeah.
Well, we are so proud of you. And I know Michael's
you.
going to close us out, but thank you so much. This has been a treat to be able to catch up, and we'll be cheering you on for sure. So
awesome. Thank you, Kara.
Yeah. McKenzie, thank you so much for being with us this evening. So we had posted the link to get pre-order McKenzie's book into the chat. You can also find that on the OIF's website as well. And I am sure we'll be posting it to our Facebook later. McKenzie, on behalf of the OIF and just everybody here, not that you need it, but good luck. We will be rooting for you. We are so excited to cheer you on from afar. And we know that we can't ask for a better representative. Thank you so much. Kara, thank you so much for leading us today. I think it was super fun and informative. I know I learned a lot. If any, just people asking if they can get a autographed copy. So I also know on your website, there is links to get a autographed copy as well. And one day in the future, when we are doing in-person events and you are there, I'm sure you would be willing to as well. Thank you all so much. I hope everyone has a good evening. We will be posting the recording to this session, hopefully in the near future. McKenzie, good luck, and we will be rooting for you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. This is awesome.